Hello, friends. It's Mr. Matt here to talk to you about our Sunday school lesson for this week. Now, you will remember we are talking about Jesus and the miraculous feeding of the 5,000. And in case you missed it from a previous week, I'll do a quick recap. This was an occasion where Jesus was teaching and people kept coming to hear Jesus teach. And crowds of people started coming and sitting around where Jesus was teaching. And more people came. And as they did, Jesus looked over to the disciples and said, all these people have come. What are we going to feed them? And the disciples, they couldn't believe that Jesus was asking that question. There were so many people and they didn't have any food, and there wasn't a restaurant in the town nearby that could give them lots and lots of food, and they didn't have the money to buy it even if there was a restaurant. So the disciples said to Jesus, there are too many, we don't have the food. We need to send them home. We need to send them on their way. And Jesus said, no, let's not do that. Let's find out how much we have. And so the disciples went and they found that they had 5 loaves of bread and they had 2 fish, and it was in a basket. And they said, it's just not enough, Jesus. It's not enough. And Jesus said, bring it here. And so Jesus said a prayer over that basket, and then he divided it up and he told his disciples, go ahead and take and share this with the people. And as they did, they would reach into the basket and they'd ask, what can we give you? And they'd hand out bread or they'd hand out fish. And they were feeding all of these people that came, these over 5,000 men and women and children who came to hear Jesus. And as they worked their way through the crowd, the basket never emptied out. In fact, after they fed everyone and everyone had very full tummies, Jesus said, okay, well, let's gather up the leftovers. We don't want anything to go to waste. And by the time the disciples gathered up the leftovers, there were 12 baskets full of food. Now, this is a really powerful story, but I think today I want to focus on one little part of it. I want to focus on the leftovers. See, the leftovers that we hear about in this story teach us something about God. And I want you to imagine, I've got a little something here. I have this little tiny roll. It's not very big at all. I mean, I could probably put it all in my mouth at one time. And I want you to imagine with this roll that this is what you might ask God for in your prayers. When you might be talking to God and asking God to take care of you and to take care of your family and the people that you love, and maybe some people that need to know God, that you're praying for them too. And you might be hoping to get something like this. So just for keeping it simple, let's pretend that you were hungry. And you might pray to God and say, God, I'm very hungry. I really could use something to eat. And you might be hoping and praying for just something to eat, something small, something to take away your hunger pains. But God has this way when we pray and when we talk to God, God has this way of doing more than we can ask or imagine. So it would be sort of like asking God, could I have this little roll, please? Could you give me this little roll? And God says, well, sure, here's your little roll, but I'm also going to give you this whole loaf of bread so that you can take it and make sandwiches for you or for other people and you can, put toppings on it. You can have it as toast for breakfast, or really, here's this whole loaf of bread. And when you were thinking about what you wanted, you didn't really think big. You didn't think about other meals or making something for somebody else. You were just saying, I just need a little bread. I'm so hungry. But God answers in a big way, in abundance. He gives you more than you can ask for or imagine. Now, don't get me wrong. This is not going to say that if you are praying for God for something real specific, like you say, dear God, I really, really, really want a pony. God may not answer that prayer for you, because that's a prayer that's just about what you want. And God tends to answer our prayers in the way that God knows is best for us. So don't think that it's like, okay, I'm going to pray for this bread, I'm going to get this bread, or I'm going to pray for a pony, I'm going to get a pony. But what happens when we do pray, when we ask God to bless something in our lives, when we ask God to take care of us and to provide for us, God does so in some really remarkable ways. Some are big and some are small, but all of those blessings pour out into our life. We often will say a prayer at mealtime where we thank God for the food that's before us. But if you step back and you think about it, it's not just needing to say thank you for the food that you have right then. What about the food that God has provided that's in your pantry and in your refrigerator at your house? Very few of us in our church are living with hunger, because God has blessed us in big ways so that we don't have to know that. But more importantly, God has blessed us by giving us a lot so that we can share it, so that we can go find those folks that might be hungry, and we can share our loaves and our fishes and anything else so that they can know that God is providing for them too, when we act as God's hands and feet. God provides abundantly. And this story of the feeding of the 5,000 shows God just didn't feed the people that were there. God provided so much that there was more food to give out. There were leftovers to share, so that some people could take them back to their village where there might be somebody that was hungry. Or there was food for another meal down the road. God provides so much more than we can think about, that it's important to just pray, to thank God for his blessings, and to just trust that God will provide us the things that we need when we need them. I think that is a little lesson that's in this story of the feeding of the 5,000 that a lot of people forget, but it's really important to remember. Okay, we have an arts and crafts video coming up for the activity. You will see our friends, Mrs. Bast, and I think there might be a few other friends that are going to help with the video. So I hope you'll tune in and check into the activity for today. Otherwise, we'll see you next week for another week of Sunday school. Until then, take care, be safe, and I hope to see you soon. All right. Bye-bye.